Hear that it's all right. We have started recording. So let me introduce you to who you may already know, our executive director, Kurt Soper. I suggest you put your view on speaker view versus gallery now so that you can really see the speakers a little bit better. So now, the other person I want to introduce you to is our new Associate Director, Angela Morris. So Kurt and Angela, you are up.
Great. Thanks so much, Amy, and everyone else. Yeah, like Amy, I've been really enjoying scrolling through and seeing the names and faces that normally we'd be breaking bread and sharing dinner with, which we will do next year. So hold that thought and join us in person next year. But yeah, the last year and a half or 2 years have been different for the Land Trust, of course. We haven't been able to see as many of you in person or do as many outside gatherings as we normally do. But here to tell you that they've been very productive and great years for us in terms of the results of the organization. You're going to hear a little bit about that tonight, at least for about the last 12 months. But wow, let's stop and think. 36 years. That is a long time for a nonprofit organization. We've grown so much, gotten so much done. And for me, it's been almost 5.5 years now that I've been here as your executive director. And people ask me to kind of reflect on that, or what do I think of the organization by now? And the first thing that comes to my mind, and I figured this out the first few months that I was here, that I'm standing on some pretty broad shoulders of the people who built this organization for the past 36 years. And that includes everyone on this call and a lot of people that aren't on the call. So we're thankful for that and for all your help and guidance and volunteer hours and everything that you've contributed over the years, and just makes a huge difference. And I also want to recognize we have an awesome, great, really supportive board of directors, and quite a few of them are on the Zoom call tonight, and a few former board members are on too. So big contributions on a volunteer basis from our board too, and we're delighted to have them here. So we're going to talk about the geography and some specific projects in terms of conserving land, stewarding the land, and connecting people to the land. Things we've done in the last 12 months. Maybe a little peek into next year and what we see coming down the pike. But one of the really important, I think, accomplishments over the last 12 months is we've added some great staff. And one of those is our new associate director, Angela Morris, who has only been on board, gosh, maybe a couple months, something like that. So I'm going to ask you, Angela, what are the first couple months have been like, and what do you think of the Land Trust so far?
Well, thank you. Well, the Land Trust is just an amazing organization that, is so well known in the community, and I'm just feeling extremely fortunate to be a part of it. I mean, it's an incredible legacy. The mission and purpose and everything about it is something to be really proud of. So I'm hoping to add to that in any way I can. And it's actually tonight, looking around at some of the faces here tonight, it's been fun for me to see many people that I know already, but of course, many that I have yet to meet, many members that I hope to get to know over the years. And I have been here just a short time, as you pointed out, but I have had the opportunity to have some good discussions with a few members. And I try and ask each one, well, what is it that makes you really, really passionate about the Land Trust? Why is it so important to you? And of course, I've been hearing, varying kinds of answers, and some answers are, kind of project-based, which makes sense. I had someone who really talked a lot about Nascent Ridge and how, that project was so incredibly important to them. And, other people talk about just, the way the future looks with more development in a lot of areas that are really precious to, that we should be looking at to preserve. And then for me, my best connection with the Land Trust is how often I'm out on the foothills, out on the trails, and others I know, are doing the same thing. And so, I can really relate to those kinds of answers for sure. But I have to tell you that the thing that has really struck me the most in the last few weeks is how much has been accomplished, even through the pandemic. I keep hearing about all these projects that have completed in the last year and ones that are in process. There's an incredible amount of work that's been done already in the last year throughout this pandemic. So I'm kind of curious to hear more about that, actually. And I think, Kurt, you're going to lead us through a tour of all those exciting happenings.
That's right. Thanks, Angela. And Angela's an awesome addition, as you can tell. We're delighted to have her. And yeah, we're going to do a little tour. We're kind of going to run this kind of from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And so hope you enjoy it. And we'll come back right afterwards. "2021 has been another great year at the Chelan-Douglas Land Trust. This is thanks to you, all the people on this call, a whole lot of people that aren't, our members and supporters, and the many volunteers who make the organization successful. So thanks. And as we do a tour here of some of the projects in 2021, you can pat yourself on the back and take some credit for this as well. But as we go through these projects, and we're going to kind of do them in chronological order, I want to remind you that since 1985, when the Land Trust started, we've helped to protect over 26,000 acres in our region. And all of these lands are traditionally home to the Pascosa, the Chelan, the Indiat, the Methow, the Okanagan, the Moses Columbia, and the Yakima people. And of course, our intent has always been to do good, and we have kept much land from being developed. But we also recognize that indigenous tribes have been stewards of this land for time immemorial, and that their people and culture and traditions live on today. We remember the history of the land and the people who first lived here and still live here. And we pledge to honor these tribes by strengthening partnerships that respect their history and traditional wisdom of the land, recognize their contributions and their culture, and we strive to build lasting relationships and trust. That's just something that's going to be the way the Land Trust works going forward, and we're excited about that. So we'll kind of start with the spring and the grand opening of the Cashmere Canyons Preserve Trailhead, and about 10 miles of new trails now open to the public up Nahom Canyon. And we did have a grand opening, but it was perhaps a little less grand than we had anticipated. We had visions of busloads of people coming up on a beautiful spring morning to cut the ribbon and spend some time together and hike the trails. But of course, with COVID, we had to scale that back. We did have an opening, but we only had about 30 people there, but it was very well received. And I was really glad that we were able to have a Pascosa tribal elder join us and kind of help kick off the new trailhead, and that was a special touch. But on the map, you can see where the little hiker figure is, and that's the spot where the new trailhead is located. And another reminder about this place is that the property is not owned by the Land Trust or a public agency. It's privately owned, and the people who own it are very generously opened it up to the public for their use and enjoyment. And these are Jay Blumenthal and Julie Edsforth, who have been wonderful to work with and very generous to the Land Trust. So this is a new kind of a preserve for us and a new kind of a trail system. There's the trailhead. There's a room for about 22 cars, I think. And there's also, of course, the all-important restroom. And coming soon, but not yet shown in this picture, is the picnic table. The landscaping has matured a little bit from when this picture was taken. But this is a great location. If you haven't been out there, be sure to get out there. It is open year-round. You know, it won't be plowed in the winter for snowfall days, but could be a good place to go on a clear winter day when there's not a lot of snow, which is most of the winter here at this elevation. And of course, we got a lot of support from not just our members and donors, but also from the state of Washington to get the land acquired for this trailhead and to get the trailhead constructed. And as is typical of the Land Trust, we counted on our volunteers to get this new preserve ready for the public. Some new trail needed to be built, and that was done largely by hand by a handful of our trusty volunteers. Working, I think also was just prior to the opening in May, so this probably was in April or so. They put in the hard work to develop the trails that take you to two wonderful high points with great views of the enchantments. And we're really thankful for our volunteers, and this was a good example of what they do. And the hike to these points is a tough one. It's uphill for the better part of 2.5 miles, but there's your reward when you get up there. The second area that I want to talk about is over on Badger Mountain, and right across the Columbia River from the Wenatchee area. And this year, we were able to secure a second conservation easement, this one of 2,400 acres on the Breiler Ranch. And together now with the Keene Ranch conservation easement, the two together represent now more than 9,000 acres of quality shrub steppe habitat intermixed with dryland wheat. So this is a working farmland as well for dryland wheat. But the conservation easements that we hold will protect the wildlife habitat, which is found in that native shrub steppe you see in the foreground. Also preserve the agricultural uses that'll continue to go on, but also prevent any future subdivision or development of the properties in the future. A big reason for our efforts and our work at Badger Mountain are all about the western sage grouse. This is one of the last places, the last quality place in the state of Washington where sage grouse occur is in Douglas County. And this is one of the drivers, but it's a whole variety of native plants and animals that occur in the native shrub steppe. And of course, they do a wonderful dance in the spring like this male is doing. That's just an iconic Western site, but one that is becoming extremely rare, not just in Washington, but throughout Western United States, where the bird was once quite commonplace. So we're excited about our work, and we have more things underway in Douglas County that'll help the sage grouse as well. Moving to the summer now, we were able to close a very exciting property, an acquisition. This is one that the Land Trust will own and manage, and it's called the Chelan-Coulees Reserve. It's about 2,130 acres, and as you can see here on the map, it is not at all far from Lake Chelan itself. So this kind of represents a bit of a new geography for us. We've always been interested in the Lake Chelan area, but never really had a signature project, and now we do. And this one really is a wonderful project and a wonderful story as to how it took place. We got a call one day from a consulting firm that was looking for mitigation land to mitigate for some of the damage that was done by the Holden mine, which is further up lake, up in Lake Chelan. And of course, we knew about this property that Jerry Schofield had put together over the years, and that it was kind of a de facto wonderful wildlife haven and area. And we kind of put two and two together and thought maybe this could act as mitigation land that these folks were looking for. So we spent a great day together with Mary Pat Schofield and some of the folks who have over the years managed this property on her behalf, and learned a lot about the place, did a few other visits, and lo and behold, it was a great place for mitigation. And so a lot of the funding necessary to acquire the property and for us to continue providing good stewardship for the property came from the Rio Tinto Mining Company, kind of a new partner for us, but they were great to work with and really made a difference in having this one happen. And something that's new or different about this one for us also is this will be the first place where we pretty aggressively manage to be an organization that is resilient to climate change and how we manage the lands that we own and manage. So this property has a lot of elevational gradient, which makes it naturally resilient to climate change. The other funding source we got was from a foundation that was focused on lands that are resilient to climate change. So this one qualified, We've got some additional funding from them, and we're being pretty aggressive on our forest thinning work out here. And so for 2 or 3 years in the future, we need to get to know this place. We need to follow up on some of the work that was done by the Schofields and make this place safer and less likely for it to have a catastrophic wildfire go through it, so that we're good neighbors and that we know that the habitats will be there into the future. Currently, this property is not and will not in the foreseeable future be open to the public. That could happen. We hope it will down the road. For the next few years anyway, we need to get to know the place and do some very important stewardship and managing out there. Moving along in the year, this is one that's been, of course, years in the making. There was a significant development this year, and this is the Nascent Ridge property up above Lake Wenatchee. And of course, it's been 3 or 4 years now that the Land Trust did a fundraising campaign and raised some of the funds necessary to acquire the property. Property was acquired by the Western Rivers Conservancy, and it's this land, this Nascent Ridge there, kind of the backside of it, the side that faces Lake Wenatchee. And so the acquisition was successful, but there was still more money to raise, and we were working with basically our government entities and agencies to try to get the funding together so that the property could be purchased from the Western Rivers Conservancy and transferred to Chelan County, our partners at Chelan County. And what happened this year was the legislature did come through for us, and a brand new community forest grant program was created by the legislature this year. And our 12th district legislators were very instrumental in making that happen and supporting it. And a total of $3 million was appropriated for the Nascent Ridge project. And that puts us over the top in terms of the funding necessary. And it was the #1 ranked community forest in the state, and really sort of the poster child for this new grant program, which we think will exist in the state legislature for many years and benefit many other properties. A great forest stewardship plan has been put together under the leadership of the county. Stewardship team is being put together to work on future management of this property. It's going to remain open to the public, and a lot of partners will help manage it. And of course, one of the highlights of this place is in the wintertime, State Parks, which is one of the active partners right next door at Lake Wenatchee State Park, does the grooming of the cross-country trails there. That's going to continue. They'll continue to be an active partner and manager in this property. So we're excited about it, but it's wonderful in the spring and summer too, and a great place to bring the family for a hike. And you can access the Nascent Ridge property through the state park. And it's just one of the best state parks in the system and one of the funnest places to visit in the state. We're moving on to the fall now. And this is an aerial image showing our Spiva Butte Nature Preserve, which we acquired 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And sort of our first major project in ownership in Douglas County. And a wonderful high quality preserve. Another one that is focused partly on the western sage-grouse, but also many other species of native plants and animals that make native shrub steppe habitats their home. And but what happened at Spiva Butte is a year ago. This story kind of starts, or the things that we got this year really are as a result of what happened last fall, last September, Labor Day weekend. The Pearl Hill fire swept through a large part of Douglas County and Okanagan County, completely burned the Spiva Butte Preserve. You can see the boundary of the fire here shown. And about a week after the fire, it looked like this. And all of the native shrub cover, so the big sagebrush, bitterbrush, rabbit brush, was all removed, all killed. And most of those don't resprout after a fire, unlike the native grasses and forbs, which will recover pretty quickly. So we thought, well, what are we going to do? We want those shrubs to be there. So we counted on our volunteers again and put together put out the word very quickly, and right around Thanksgiving of last year, a major collection effort was done of native sagebrush seeds, collected not far from the preserve, but at the appropriate elevation. We took those seed heads, dried them out, bagged them up, got some more volunteers together, and went out and we did a couple of things. We did some hand sowing, so some flinging, I think is the appropriate term, for these big sagebrush seeds onto Spiva Butte in the hopes that the spring rains would come and they would sprout. We also took some of those seeds and worked with a native nursery to grow them out as plugs, as little seedlings. And this spring planted a number of those. So we kind of gave a jump start to the restoration effort post-fire. You can see right after the fire on the left, and in the spring of this year, as I mentioned, the grasses and the forbs and a few of the shrub species are very good at recovering on their own after a fire. And that was the case here. But we needed to give the big sagebrush especially a helping hand. And so we'll continue to monitor the preserve and to see how those seedlings are doing. But we're really glad that we went to this effort and that we had the staff and volunteers on hand to make it happen. Now we're going to visit up the Indiat River. And maybe some of you have been up to the Indiat, but not all of you. The parcels shown here are the parcels that have been acquired over the years by the Land Trust, and those are properties that we own. And most all of these were acquired with the idea of that they are either existing good salmon habitat, or they are areas that could be good salmon habitat, but they need some restoration work. So the funding source for a lot of these was salmon recovery funding for a lot of these acquisitions, in addition to private dollars from members and supporters. And for the last 3 years, there's been a very significant restoration effort underway that kind of began with the heavy equipment getting in there and placing large woody debris that is missing from the river to kind of slow the water down, create pools and riffles for the young fish to find safety in. There also was a house in the floodplain that we're able to successfully remove even before we did the other restoration work. And so the first 2 years, and this is work that's been done on the Land Trust property, but the actual work itself was done by our partners like the Yakima Nation, the Chelan County Department of Natural Resources, Department of Fish and Wildlife. And after the heavy equipment and some of the earth moving, of course, we went back in with native trees and shrubs and planted those to get to kind of fully recover the area. And they're doing very well and recovering well. And we know that the pools and the riffles and the coarse woody debris are holding together, which is what we want, and improving the quality of the habitat for the salmon. So the water is staying on this site a little bit longer, and that's one of the goals. This is an interesting picture here of that area that's kind of the lightest colored, kind of naked. You can see both some of the coarse woody debris that's been placed in there. That is also near the location of where there was a house. There's now been removed, and the dike that was protecting that house has been removed, and the river is naturally, and with our help, reclaiming this area. And the water can flow there again and just increase the number of streams and channels where the fish and the things they eat can thrive and survive. The other thing we're doing here at the Indiat is improving the public access. So there are some public access points at some of these properties along the Indiat River, but we're going to improve it both for some people that are physically challenged, make it a little bit easier for them to enjoy these particular places, and also have much better and more complete interpretive signage so that people who visit can understand why this restoration work is being done, why it's important, and kind of what our strategy is. So you'll have to get out to the Indiat next year. So when you kind of roll it all up, and if you were a satellite out in space looking down on Chelan-Douglas counties, you sort of start to see these little colors of places where the Land Trust is having and has had an impact. This is pretty much most of the properties that we have worked on over the years. And just really proud of the fact that we've expanded our geographic footprint a lot. we're still, of course, very active and spend a lot of time and effort and are continuing to do more work on the Wenatchee foothills, but also have a lot going on in Douglas County, more things up around Lake Chelan, and great work up around Lake Wenatchee as well in the Leavenworth area. And of course, we are not done. We have a lot of exciting projects that we are currently working on that we think we're going to bring to the finish line, whether it's acquisitions or stewardship work or work to get all of you out there and enjoying these lands. But you'll have to come back next year when we fully expect and hope to be in person in Wenatchee, enjoying a meal together to learn about what takes place in 2022 and to celebrate some of the successes you've made happen. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Kurt. That is an amazing number of huge projects that have been accomplished last year. There's one more big project that we can talk about, and that is that the new 5-year strategic plan was completed last year, which is pretty exciting for the Land Trust. It gives guidance for the next few years. And for me, being new to the organization, it's been a really rewarding to read through it and to absorb it and that kind of thing. And I would say, upon reading it just a few times, that what's impressive is that there is such a rich history of accomplishments to build on, and that what really comes through with this plan. So it doesn't have the feel of starting from scratch at all. It's really expansive and aspirational, and that comes from the solid foundation. But I am curious, we actually have not had this conversation. What was the strategic planning process like for you and the staff and board?
Well, I'm glad you've done your homework, Angela, and actually read the strategic plan. It's a good read, especially for everyone on this call who loves the Land Trust and cares about what we do and wonder what direction we might be going. So it's on our website now. So I'd encourage anyone who wants to download it or take a look at it there. And I'd say a few things about the development of the strategic plan. One is, instead of we thought it would be a 1-year process, it ended up being a 2-year process. That's mostly due to COVID, because in our inability to get together, we really felt like the staff and the board wanted to get together in person a handful of times to talk about the direction of the organization and kind of nail what the opportunities are and where we should be going. So we went deep on some topics over the period of about a 1.5 years. Finally, we're able to get together in person this year in July. And I'm going to go back a little bit further, though. It actually started 2 years ago, a little more than 2 years ago, with a survey of our members, and also just members of the general community. They weren't necessarily Land Trust members, and that helped inform us. And we got some great information, some great responses, some great data. One of the things that we heard loud and clear is, oh, don't stop what you're doing. We like that. And so one of the things that has not changed in the new 5-year strategic plan is our mission. It's the same. And kind of our principles of how we do our work also have not changed. I'd say what is maybe a little bit different, or what's emphasized a lot more in this plan, is kind of 2 themes. One is that we are going to strive to become a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable organization. We know we can do better at that, and we've already started doing some of those things. But that's something that's going to be a way that we do our work, or as some people like to say, we're going to put on a pair of glasses with lenses that allow us to see better what it means to be a more diverse and inclusive organization. The other topic, the things that will be different about how we select our sites, how we manage the places we work on, is that we are going to strive to be an organization that's resilient to climate change. Talked a little bit about that in the video there, and particularly the Chelan-Coulees Reserve. But so you're going to see more of that. And it's just the way it's going to permeate the work we do in every way. And you'll see that if you read the plan and kind of work through it. But Angela, maybe I'll put you on the spot a little bit. I know this is an area you're interested in, and you're going to get some assignments on this. But so when you hear about being a more diverse, inclusive, and equitable organization, sort of like, what does that mean to you? And an example, or what does that look like?
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I was thrilled to discover that diversity, equity, and inclusion are such a important part of the plan. I really liked the idea of being, working with an organization that finds that to be really an important goal. So when I looked through, the strategic plan, there definitely are some concrete actions that are in the plan, and some of the ones that kind of jumped out at me that really makes sense is one of them is we'll be working on protecting socially and culturally important areas that also have high conservation values, which means that when we are considering a new property or looking at a new area, we'll be also thinking about how does this fit with our goals with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Does this have any traditional uses that could be used on that land with Indigenous folks? And are there accessibility issues that we should be looking at? So there are a lot of aspects of that we can incorporate into assessing a new property. Another one is ensuring that all perspectives of our diverse community are represented in the work that we do, in contributing to information that we gather, in looking at the composition of the board, the staffing, and that kind of thing, making sure that we're always aware that we're casting a wide net and have great hiring practices so that we include as many people as we possibly can in consideration. But one that's especially close to my heart that's in the strategic plan is the one about engaging and building partnerships, which I'm really excited to be helping the Land Trust with. But this is one that will be really seeking out those key leaders, groups who are especially interested in representing all diverse groups around the community. And so we want to have a deeper conversation, a deeper relationship with those kinds of groups. So, what this means to me is that what we're going to be doing is looking for opportunities all the time in all the work that we do. And this also will mean that we'll be developing trust and relationships with folks maybe that we haven't worked with before, but that's a good thing. And also, I guess I should remind us that we already are doing some of that work right now, and we've begun to develop connections with the Wenatchee Advisory Board. And if you're not familiar with them, they are the group that advises the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation. So a very influential group that we're happy to be networking with. And another group that's local is the Indigenous Roots and Reparation Foundation, who are working to reconnect Native peoples to the land. So that's, another natural fit. And then another one that we've been working with for a while is Team Naturaliza, and their goal is to connect Latinx youth and adults with natural lands. So that's definitely something that we want to be a part of for sure. So lots of good things to be excited about in the future in this regard. But I would love to hear from you. What more can we talk about with climate change?
Yeah, I think I think maybe the best way I've heard it explained is sort of thinking about as we manage our lands and as we select what places we're going to work on and try to conserve, and how we manage public access. We kind of think about 30 years from now. We know that our climate is already warmer. We know there's going to be more intense fires. We've already seen that, and it's continuing to happen. We know the temperatures can be higher. It's going to be drier. There's going to be less water, most likely. So we kind of trying to think about what are all these places that we're working on, what are they going to look like? What's the climate going to be like 30 years from now, and try to get out ahead of that a little bit, or be prepared for that. So, that might mean more aggressive forest thinning, like we're doing at the Mountain Home Preserve and the Chelan-Coulees Reserve. It might be thinking about how we do restoration for salmon habitat and where we select places to conserve the salmon habitat, thinking about maybe not only where the fish are now, but where they're going to be, since we know they like cold water, and they're going to have protected areas and pools that are colder than maybe some of the places where they are now. So it's kind of about thinking into the future and managing, thinking about 30 years ahead or even 50 years ahead. So you can expect to see more of that kind of work on the places where we're working. But I'm guessing that by now we've got some good questions in the chat, and I want to get to those. But as I mentioned, we've got some great projects in the works, and I think that most of you are very educated land trust members and supporters. So, we don't talk a lot about the specifics of projects until the ink is dried and the deal is done. But just to give you a little hint, or to bring you back to the dinner next year, we've got some things going. Think Foothills. There's some things going on in the Foothills I think you're going to be excited about, both from an access and a conservation standpoint. So that's just a little bit of hint about what might be coming. But Amy, if you're still out there, I think you might have been monitoring the questions. Did we get any good ones?
We've got some great questions, and I do want to encourage people, if your questions weren't answered by listening to Kurt and Angela talk or by the video, please put them in the chat. You can send them to everyone, or you can send them directly to Ask Questions here, and those will get to me somehow. The first question I have for you: are the new Douglas County ranches with conservation easements open to the public?
Yeah, the Keene Ranch and their Bryler Ranch, they're over on Badger Mountain. Those are working ranches, and they are not open to the public. Like the Cashmere Canyons Preserve, those are both conservation easement projects. That's our mechanism for conserving the land permanently. But unlike the Cashmere Canyons Preserve, which was always was a recreational second home kind of place for the owners, and they are delighted to invite the public. Those ranches are active working ranches with cattle on parts of them, a lot of activities going on out there on a regular basis, and they're not open to the public. So a lot of the projects that we work on, we are able to invite the public to come out, but sometimes on the conservation easements, they're not open to the public.
Okay, here's another question. Will Cashmere Canyons Preserve be open for skiing in the winter?
I think I can take that one. Well, Cashmere Canyons is, of course, one of those properties that we're really grateful for the owner who allows us to have access to it. I should say that first off. And it's going to be, I think in the wintertime, it's going to be a really interesting place to do some hiking, and even, when there's snow, doing some snowshoeing up there. It's not going to be a place where people will be able to ski, unfortunately. The other thing you should know is that there probably won't be, or I should say there won't be, any plowing of snow out of the parking lot there. So be prepared for that kind of thing. So definitely that winter hiking and snowshoeing if there's snow.
Great, but no skiing?
No skiing.
Great. Here's a question. Are there any plans for new trailheads in the foothills?
Yes, there are. That's part of the, or I should say, new or expanded. One that the construction will be starting on this coming year, and the work here will be done by the city primarily, is what's going to be called the Kinsey's Landing Trailhead. It's kind of at the end of Maiden Lane at the north end of the foothills. So that one, maybe a year from now, will be open, but the city is doing a great job there. The funding is in place, the property has been acquired, so that'll be a new trailhead. And there are a couple other places where we know there are challenges in terms of, especially in the spring, of not enough places to park. So there are a couple of other places that we are working to expand existing access and kind of improve that for your parking spots or a restroom or what have you. That's part of the tips and the teas of what may be coming. So we're still sticking to the Foothills plan that was done with a lot of public input 10, 15 years ago. And it was kind of selected as to how many trailheads should there be and what kind of capacity do we need. And we are marching through that and get a lot of together with many partners, particularly the city of Wenatchee. But gosh darn it, people are moving here and they love the foothills, and those that live here enjoying them. So I think maybe we might have underestimated the need. So increasing the capacity in the foothills is something on our radar screen.
Awesome. Okay. Someone here misses seeing us, I think, because they want to know if there are any volunteer opportunities coming up.
Yes, actually, there are several coming up right away. And if you have nothing going on tomorrow, there's one happening tomorrow morning, which is the Horse Lake Trail maintenance. So it'll be a chance to get outside and, get a little exercise, doing, good work for the land trust and for everyone that uses those trails. And that's, I think it's from 9 to 1 tomorrow morning. I would suggest going to the website though and signing up to do that first, so they know that you're coming, or if they need to get a hold of you, anything like that. Another one coming up this week is on Wednesday, and that is the sagebrush planting in the Wenatchee foothills. And this is going to be a fun one too, where we're going to be planting some sagebrush seedlings in an area that's experienced fires a couple times over the years. So I believe that the meeting spot is going to be at the end of Maiden Lane, and be walking from there near the Balsam Root Trail. So that'll be a good one. And then next weekend, on the 13th, there will be a trip out toward Spiva Butte. Kurt already explained, and you all know about the Pearl Hill fire and how that was so devastating to the Spiva Butte area. But last year we did some seed gathering and flinging and planting, and more of that is going to happen, but we need to gather more of those seeds. And so that's on the 13th, Saturday the 13th. It's from 10 to 2, and be an opportunity to get out and about out of Wenatchee and see some good Douglas County land out there, but dress warmly, I would say. And there's another one that you'd want to sign up for on the website. So yeah, some fun things coming up.
That's great, because a question here was about whether there'd be further efforts to replant sagebrush at Spiva Butte. You just answered that. So that's cool.
Well, we had good success, with it last year, so we're going to do more of it.
Right. So somebody here, to everyone, wanted to know how fundraising is doing.
I think we ought to make Amy, even though we can't see her face, answer that one. You're the fundraiser in chief.
Well, let me see if I can get my face to show, just so I'm seen. Fundraising is going well. Oops, you still can't see me. Fundraising is going well. We have, because of all of you out there right now, very loyal members and donors, and you've really stepped up in this last couple of years that could have been really tough, but you saw the need and you recognized that the natural world was very important during this time, and we've had successful fundraising efforts. And we're about to launch an annual campaign, so you'll all get your annual letter here in the next few weeks. So it's going well, and thank you for asking. So I'm done answering that question. Let me find you another one. Because here's a really good one. I think this is something I've heard a couple of people ask. What are the advantages to having a community forest in our area? So for Nascent Ridge.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at that one. So, and there's this new community forest program. And so I think the best way to describe it is that the decisions are made locally. The income derived from, say, forest thinning is kept local and kept on the property. So this particular property was owned by an industrial, large international industrial owner, and now it's going to be owned much more locally. Eventually, I'm talking about Nascent Ridge, of course, and it'll be owned by Chelan County, and it's just going to be more local input into how it's managed and who does the management, and what the rules are for the access, when it's open, how that works. So I think when I think community forest, I think more local ownership and decision making are kind of the two hallmarks of it.
All right, we are just past 7:45, and we did tell people that we were going to take about 45 minutes. If everyone wants to stick around, we have one more question that's come through, so I'd like to ask it to let that person get an answer. And then we can go back to gallery view. We'll stop the recording, and everyone can spend a little bit of time saying hello to each other again. So the question here is, what makes this is probably a really big question, but I guess sum it up as quickly as possible. What makes a property climate resilient?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the way I'll answer it is thinking about the kind of criteria that we had to work through when we made an application to the foundation that funds climate resilient projects. So some things I think of are elevational gradients. So low elevation to high elevation in the same in a short area or on the same piece of property. That's so as the climate changes, say a species that it's starting to get warm for them down in the lower area, they can move up in elevation where it's a little bit cooler, whether it's a plant or an animal. So elevational gradient is one. A wide variety of soil types and directions, so north facing and south facing both slopes. So again, that kind of variety of both soil and aspect and temperature and elevation. Those are all things that make a site resilient to climate change. And then, whether it is already in a condition to where or maybe when a fire goes through, that it won't burn so hot, there isn't so much fuel that it'll be completely torched and all the trees killed, but that it's been managed so that there's greater spacing among the trees, fire can move through and not be crown fires. So well-managed properties as well that are prepared for the eventual fire that's going to come through makes a property resilient to climate change.
Great. Well, that, I believe, answers all the questions that came in. I'm kind of checking all the sources for the questions, but I think we got them all. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to stop recording. We're sending this out in a link on Monday. So if y'all want to watch this again, you'll have it or forward it to people. And I know we had a lot of people who couldn't make it, so they're excited to see the recording. So I'm stopping that, and then turn on your camera.